Okay. So tonight we begin, as usual, with the Happiness for Learning mini workshop, and I will focus on exercise towards happiness. We will devote, as usual, 10 minutes to this particular session, and after that, we will devote another 10 minutes to a drop-in session where you can ask questions about the assessments, questions about the topics that we've covered in administrative law, and then we proceed with our regular tutorial at 7 o'clock Queensland time. We are, of course, prepared to extend beyond 8 p.m. For the purpose of answering any other questions you might have or for another drop-in session. So, and I also wish to thank those of you who are here who have decided to join tonight's session. So thanks. So I should probably begin by already, right? Unless there's anything you'd like to take up. Comments, questions before I proceed? None, so we're all good. Now remember, there is going to be a session, a drop-in session after this, where you could ask your question. But in the meantime, allow me to talk about exercise towards happiness. So after this session, you will critically reflect on the impact of exercise on happiness and how to get into the habit of exercising. And I think this is a relevant topic, especially, as I said, because it's the start of the new year. And we often end up with a lot of New Year's resolutions. A lot of us would probably have considered joining a gym, buying some kind of a weight equipment, deciding on running, swimming, or doing, all sorts of sports activities. But as we all know, it's one thing to make decisions or resolutions or set goals, and it's altogether a different thing to start doing them. So there's a huge disconnect in the human person between what they know is correct and what they should be doing as opposed to behavior. So for instance, a lot of people know that smoking is bad. A lot of people perhaps know that drinking too much is bad, taking drugs is bad, and yet we know that a lot of people engage in it anyway. Now, we're not trying to be judgmental. We're just trying to emphasize that there's often a disconnect between what we know is good for us and what is bad, and yet we tend to do certain things that we know is harmful to us. And part of that might be in relation to being students, is that we know that we need to study a lot, but sometimes we don't. So that's just for emphasis. Now, so the topic is going to be on exercising, because studies show that if a person exercises, it releases endorphins. And endorphins are chemicals that are naturally produced in the body that produce a high, an experience which makes you happy. And it might be said that for some people who want a quick fix, they turn to, food to have the endorphins. Some turn to drugs, just to get that high, that feeling of high. But in fact, exercise has been proven and has been shown to trigger the release of endorphins in the body. And endorphins are the feel-good chemicals in the body. Now, let me begin by telling you something about myself. So this picture was taken in 2010 when I went to the US to visit my brothers. If you notice, I was a bit overweight. Not that I'm no longer overweight, but I was, much, much more overweight about 8 years ago. I was probably about 105 kg. The heaviest I was at about 108 kg. And at that time, I was a bit younger then, by a few years, and I felt, I should probably be able to eat as much as I want. And, when the point comes when I feel a bit older, then I will exercise. That's when I start thinking about my health. And then, my daughter was born in 2011. So I have a 6-year-old daughter. And then it made me, and then, all sorts of health issues arose, including gout, high blood sugar levels, problems with cholesterol, etc., which some of you who might be my age would probably encounter when you do have a blood test. And I figured, if I wanted to live longer, I needed to do something about my health, and especially because I had young kids. And so what I've done is actually, actually started really seriously exercising only last year. And I am happy to say that since then, this is how my body looks like. Actually, that's not true. That's not me. I'm just kidding. So I'm still overweight, okay? But my body weight has dropped tremendously. So from 108, it went down to 98 last year. December, it's now down to 90 kg. My goal was to make it drop to 85. Wasn't successful, but I'm happy where I'm at. And well, I need to tell you in advance that research tells us that actually losing weight is never easy. Okay, so for those of you who are struggling with weight, trying to lose weight, studies show that losing weight is never easy because, according to studies, there is such a thing as a set point in our body. So when our body notices that we're beginning to lose weight, the evolutionary mechanisms of feast and famine kicks in, so that our metabolism actually slows down. And that's the reason why people who are actually on a diet may lose weight initially, but actually they regain their weight in a few years. So if you have been watching, The Biggest Loser shows and so on, in about 95 of the cases of all the individuals who participated, perhaps about 98% of them, they all regained their weight in a few years, usually about 3 to 5 years. And in fact, they became heavier. So, it's a perplexing problem. Martin Seligman, who is the founder of positive psychology, and who was at one time, in 1990, was the president of the American Psychological Association, has admitted that, because he is such a brilliant guy, he studies positive psychology, and he has admitted it is not easy for him to lose weight. So I know how difficult it is, but there are some strategies. And as I said, an example perhaps is that today I'm actually a bit tired because for the very first time in my life, I ran for 8 kilometers today. I've never done it. When I was younger, when I was perhaps when I was 16 or 17, I even had trouble running for 1 kilometer. But the first time that I was able to run for 1 kilometer was actually last year. And it was a struggle, but since then, 5K has been okay. And just today, I did 8 kilometers. So the question is, how do you do it? Now, there are a lot of studies that show that one, you begin by taking small bites, taking small steps. It's not about the willpower alone, because willpower, there's such a thing as ego depletion, according to the study by Burmeister. I don't know if you've heard of the marshmallow test. And what it suggests is that if you constantly use your willpower, such as trying to force yourself not to eat a cookie that's just right there, or trying to not buy something when you go to a store, it actually depletes your willpower. It calls it ego depletion. And so therefore, if you use your willpower for the purpose of pushing yourself to exercise, it is a difficult battle to win. And a lot of people, such as, for example, a book written by Robert Cialdini, a book on influence, he says that it shouldn't be about relying on willpower alone, but relying on the environment and putting the proper cues. So for some of them, what they've done is actually, if their intention is actually to run, they would already set they would put their shoes right next to their bed so that the first thing that they see when they wake up would be the running shoes. And then they tell themselves, just put on these shoes, wear shorts, put on these shoes, and see what happens next. But those small cues actually then lead to the desired behavior, and that's when you start running. And so, for example, when I ran today, because I was very tired when I decided to go running today, I said I was just going to run for 5 kilometers, not 5 kilometers, for just 5 minutes. And then when I hit the 5-minute mark, I say, okay, I think I can do another 5 minutes. And I kept on doing that, for every 5 minutes until I finished it in 65 minutes. So it's 6:50. And so my challenge to you, given the evidence that exercise is really, good for us, is to consider exercise. Now, I am aware that for those who are married, for those who are partners, having a partner has the benefit that, you can with your partner, you can release endorphins through natural activities with your partner, right? And I don't know what you're thinking about, but I'm talking about, going to the movies or eating in a fancy restaurant. So I don't know what some of you are thinking. But for some of us who are single, like myself, I've not been married. I mean, I divorced my wife about 2.5 years ago. I'm alone. So there are certain things which couples can do, but I can't. So, I mean, I know that there are some who say that, there are certain things that you can do by yourself that will make you happy. And that might be true, including, to me, gardening, playing golf. Some of you may have other thoughts about, I'll not get into that. So, but, the easy way is just to exercise. Okay, so that's it for me for now. So I've covered the importance of happiness. I mean, the importance of exercise for happiness. Exercise has also been shown to actually help people move away from depression, from being sad. Evidence actually shows that for people who are depressed, exercise is just as effective, perhaps even more effective than antidepressants, perhaps even more effective than cognitive behavioral therapy or talking to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or even a counselor. So think about it. So exercise is good. It's good for the soul. It's good for the body. It makes you, live longer. You don't have to suffer, I mean, I'm still struggling, as I said, but it's good for your body. And, it does wonderful things. So, but the important thing is you don't rely on your willpower alone, but try to do something about your situation, about your environment, so that it becomes easier to get into the habit of exercise. So I'll stop there. Now, we have a few minutes for a drop-in session. Any questions? I'll probably begin by talking about, what a segue, right? Happiness for learning session, and then we start talking about administrative law.